Hi everybody, my name's Holly, and this is just going to be a recent reads video. I'm just going to talk about the latest 5 books that I've read. So the first book I have today is Half Lost by Sally Green. Half Lost is the final book in the Half Bad trilogy by Sally Green, and I've read these like every other year since they came out or something like that. It's been a little while. We are following kind of a magical society where there are black witches and white witches, and our protagonist is half white witch and half black witch. I'm already forgetting half of the plot of this thing. And there was an epic battle, and things must be defeated, society's overturned, blah blah blah. I found Half Lost to be entirely forgettable. Overall, the series is a really unique and distinguished voice from the rest of YA. It's got a totally different atmosphere and a completely different narration style, and there's just something that stands out from all other series that I really appreciated. But the story itself, the plot, the characters, I find so entirely forgettable that I just can hardly bring myself to care about them, about what's going on, even as I'm reading the book. And I found that this carried through with the third book. I don't think the books got worse as they went, I just couldn't bring myself to care. And I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with the books themselves, it just didn't connect with me. As well, I found, and spoilers here, the ending of this book was extremely depressing and tragic, and I did not like it. I don't believe that every book has to end happy, but that was just such a dark ending. And, you know, I could sit and talk and probably say, you know, war is awful, sometimes life ends tragically, but I didn't want that for the character, even though I hardly cared for him, and it was just so miserable. Overall, this book got, I think, maybe 3 stars. It was almost 2 stars because of how much I disliked the ending, but that was just a personal thing. It wasn't a poorly written ending or anything, or a poorly executed ending. It was just so sad. The next audiobook that I listened to was actually a reread or a re-listen. I listened to this on audiobook a couple of years ago and I really enjoyed it, and I've been meaning to get to the sequel, but it's been pushed off, and I was on a long holds list at the library, and then by the time I was getting close to getting the second book from the library, I realized I didn't remember a lot of the original book. And so I decided to reread this audiobook, and as well, I was having a hard time like listening to audiobooks. I just couldn't focus on them, so I wanted something that I knew I really enjoyed, like an audiobook that I knew I enjoyed. And so I took out from the library Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor, which is a fantasy book that I don't even know how to describe it. It's a fantasy book following a librarian that is going off on an adventure to help this civilization that was thought to be lost and possibly not even real, figure out a solution to this problem that they're going through. And then on the flip side, there is a race of gods or godlike beings, or rather their offspring, so sort of demigods. And so you sort of see how their stories actually meet in the middle and intertwine. It's just such a weird story, and I'm sure there's probably a better description out there on the internet. Go forth and look for it. It is a really beautifully written book, and I love the audiobook for this. This is one of those audiobooks where I feel like the audiobook experience elevates the story itself. There's just something about the narrator. He does such a phenomenal job with the story, and his voice just lends to the atmosphere so well. I love Strange the Dreamer. It's a 5-star book for me. I blocked the ending. Like, the ending is so shocking that I completely blocked it from my memory, so when I got to the end of this re-listen, I completely forgot what happened and I was reeling. I think I was actually more shocked this time around because I thought I had remembered the ending and I didn't remember anything like that, and it was just so, such a cliffhanger. I left this book so excited for the sequel, but I was still on the holds list at the library. So in between Strange the Dreamer and its sequel, I listened to Let's Talk About Love by Kann, which is a romance contemporary book, YA, about a girl. Actually, it's another story that's set after the first year of university, which I am like living for. I wish these books had been out when I was in university because I wanted books that didn't feel quite so adult. Like, for me, when I was in university, I felt like this weird in-between, not a teenager, not a real adult, and a lot of college academic, you know, set books feel too adulty for me. And so I love these sort of YA-esque, I guess probably what New Adult was supposed to be, books that is like that, you know, transition stage, and younger college me is living for these books. So Let's Talk About Love is about an asexual character who thought she had come to terms with her asexuality, but isn't very public about it, isn't very out with it, definitely not with the girls she's dating, and right at the beginning of the book we start with her being broken up with because she's not interested in sex. And so the story is an exploration of her asexuality and her, you know, accepting that maybe she hasn't quite come to terms with it yet, and so exploring it further. As well, there is a romance in there, and it's really, really adorable, and it's just so quirky and cute, and I love it. And I love our main character. She herself is so quirky and adorable. As well, what I really, really loved about this book, it explores the protagonist, whose name is Alice. Alice's identity, not just on different separate levels, like she is black, she's female, she is ace or queer. She's not just those things, but those identities intersect, and where they intersect means different things for her. So a black queer person experiences life and their identity is different than a white queer person or an Asian queer person, and a, you know, versus a queer male and a queer female, or what be it. What I really appreciated was how her identity was explored with these different intersections, these different layers, without feeling bogged down and heavy. It was just seamlessly flowed with the rest of the plot. It was really lovely. I think I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. It might have been 4. As an ace person myself, it hit very close to home in a lot of aspects, and there were times where I was just sitting there like shaking a little because it feels wild to feel so seen in a story. If you want just like at the basic level a really cute romance, A+. So after Let's Talk About Love, I finally got a hold of Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor, which is the sequel to Strange the Dreamer. And so it was really great just being able to pick back up and go into that story without too much of a weight. And as a sequel, I think it stood up as a sequel. It didn't drop, it didn't really raise it, like really maintained the quality level from the first book. There was so much explosive world building in the second book. Like all the questions you had, you know, questions you didn't even know you had were answered and explored and grappled with. And it was so cool to see where Laini Taylor's imagination took her with the story, and getting to see the relationships develop of all the characters that we met in the first book, and the characters develop. And again, another 5-star read because it was just such a solid, beautiful, gorgeous book, and it's such a fun audiobook to go through as well. Like I completely enjoyed the audiobook experience. Would highly recommend. Muse of Nightmares definitely got 5 stars. I have no complaints about this. It wrapped up very nicely. It even left itself open to have more books set in this world and with these characters, and I really, really hope that that happens. The final book that I'm going to talk about was another audiobook by Marisha Pessl, and it was Neverworld Wake. And Neverworld Wake follows 5 teenagers that wake up and are told that they were in a car accident, that they are on the brink of death, and that they have to vote for one person of their group to survive and live on. And in the meantime, they keep living the day that they died over and over again in like a sort of Groundhog movie effect. And it just keeps going and going and going. And so while this is going, they can't agree on what's happening. They're doing all sorts of things during this repeating day. And it also turns into sort of a murder mystery because one of their friends died like the year before. And the suspense of it was very interesting. I did like the characters. It was definitely like page turning, or like I didn't want to stop listening. I did find excuses to listen to it because I wanted to know what was happening next. But for the most part, the characters, the writing, the world building was very 3 stars for me throughout. Like it was good, it was enjoyable, it just wasn't exceptional. I did really like the ending and the sort of philosophical reflection that the main character had, or that the surviving character had at the end of the book. It wasn't bad by any means, it was just very okay. It was very intriguing. I don't think I'll like be thinking about it in the days to come or anything. It was an alright read. It was satisfying. And now that it's over, I feel no need to think about it. Overall, these reads ranged from like really, really good to like just okay, which is great because that means I didn't have any bad books and my reading was like pretty good. Thank you so much for watching this video, and bye. Remember the ending, puppy.